What's up guys, Omar Farouk here. Welcome to this training video where I'm going to show you how to transform your Figma design mockup to an actual fully responsive and functional Wix Studio website. In this, we're going to go through responsive layouts, their section grid system, as well as the advanced CSS grid system. We'll also cover margins, padding, and responsive breakpoints across the website. And we'll also test out the AI responsive generator tool within Wix Studio. We're also going to show you how to use Wix's native component repeaters, which is an awesome way to create repeated content across your website. This could include, product cards, blog cards, etc. And the cool thing about this is we're going to use the repeated content and populate it via the CMS. Now do note that Wix Studio is yet to release its Figma integration. So for now, we're going to be covering a more raw process where we'll be referring directly to the Figma design, looking at its properties, and then transferring them over manually to Wix Studio. Now this training video will be a great way for you guys to figure out the difference between Wix Studio's property semantics and layout functionalities as opposed to Figma's. Now I've left the Figma file linked below in the description for you to access. And then once you've taken a look at that, we can jump straight in. All right guys, so as you can see, I'm inside my Figma file. This is my personal website that I knocked up. It's very simple. As you can see, it's just got a basic header with my handle on it. And then below that, there's this grid. I believe you call it a bento grid. And it's comprised of basically these various containers with content inside of it. Some introduction about me, some top level stats, my social media links, etc. And just below that, I have a section called My Stuff. Just super casual. That's the kind of tone of voice that I approach my personal brand with. And you can see in that section, there's these cards for products, services, templates, etc. that I provide, which people can go and click and access. And then finally below that, there's a very simple testimonial section. And finally at the very bottom, there's a footer with my social links again repeated. So that is the basics of my design. I've done two widths. I haven't done the mobile responsive. I'm hoping I can hack the mobile responsive directly on Wix, but you can see I've got a 144 width, and I'm going to start at this size for my desktop so I can kind of hack through the different sizes. There's very specific spacings, margins, and gaps between each section. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our new website build. So I've got my Wix Studio account open on the second tab. I'm going to keep my Figma tab open at the same time, just in case I need to pull some properties, download some assets, etc. So this will just optimize my workflow. And from the Wix Studio account, I'll go to the top right corner and click Create New Site. Under Create with Wix Studio, we can start from a blank canvas. We'll go ahead and click that. Perfect. So here's the default blank canvas in Wix Studio. It comes with a default header, your section, and a footer. Both the header and footer are global elements, so they'll be the same across the entire website. And yeah, just before we do get started, it's really important to set the foundations. However, for those of you guys who are not familiar with the basic sort of editing workflow on Wix Studio, I do recommend that you go to the bottom left corner and click video tutorials and get through all of these tutorials. They're very quick to go through. Each video is about 3 to 4 minutes approximately, which you can get through just over an hour. It took me at least. And this will just allow you to have a fundamental understanding on all of Wix Studio's kind of properties and layout functions and things like that. So definitely recommend going through all of that before you continue with this video. Now this is especially important because of course the sort of property semantics in Figma as well as the responsive layout functions are completely different from Wix Studio's properties and functions, right? They might be some similarities, but there's going to be significant differences. And so you'll have to be familiar with how Wix Studio's editor works to be able to control the properties to get the exact same result as your Figma design. So now once you've gone through that, if you want further training, there's an option at the very bottom here, which says check out all our videos on Wix Studio Academy. Click that link. It'll take you to Wix Studio Academy, where there's tons of other resources like courses, webinars, and stuff like that. I skimmed through some of them and, the content is awesome. It'll really kind of sharpen your skills on Wix Studio. But like I said, as a base level, make sure you go through all these quick tutorials to familiarize yourself with the editing workflows. Now, once you've done that, we'll go ahead and get started with the file setup. So you want to get your foundations right before you start going into a deeper editing workflow. So to start off, let's go ahead and pull all of my styles from my Figma file to Wix Studio. So I'll go over to my Figma file. I'll start with my colors. So we have my primary orange color, which I'll copy over. And on Wix Studio, on the left menu, you've got site styles, click that, and we'll go into colors and we'll start adding the colors. So for my primary color, I'll change the action color to my orange, and then I'll use this more section for my other colors. I've got a range of colors in my personal brand, which I want to utilize and have easy access to. Now, Wix Studio, of course, has some really cool features. Like you can see, it automatically creates some shades for you, which is pretty nice. You can also customize those individual shades if you want to. However, I don't find that necessary at the moment. Now, I've run out of colors, and interestingly, I haven't figured this out. I'm sure there's a way to do this, but I can't seem to add more colors here other than the sort of the default allowed. So what I'll do is, another way, a hack around this, let's just say, is by going to your edit panel, selecting a section and just clicking any color swatch. And from here, we can go ahead and add, standalone colors at the bottom under my colors for this specific file, right? So I've got my paper color, which is an off-white that I use in my design, as well as this dark gray for this block over here, which is this color code over here. So let me add that. And I believe I have another color as well, which is the border, that gray over here. Great, so now that I've got all my colors transferred over, I can go ahead and add my fonts. The fonts across my entire site is Space Grotesque. I'm pretty sure it's a common font. It should be available here. So I'll go again to my Wix styles, and under typography, I've got all my fonts over here. I'm not too fussed about the size right now. I can do that later, but I'll start by adding the font. So my headers are all Space Grotesque and bold. Great, so all the fonts are there. You can see it's all Space Grotesque, just like my site. I'll close this tab. And now we can go ahead and choose our different breakpoints, right? So in my Figma file, the main breakpoint I'm using is a 1440 width. I have a 1920 just for reference, but I don't need this as a breakpoint necessarily. The layout is responsive in this way. So you can see this block stretches out, which we'll get to in a minute when we start designing the section. But the main thing is that I need my 1440 width. So I'll go to my layers panel and choose the page. And from the page, what we want to do is make sure this one is a bit smaller. So I want it to be 1200 pixel. And we're going to add a bigger breakpoint at 1440. Done. Great, so now that will be our new primary breakpoint, and then we have the 1200 as well as the tablet and mobile. Now let's make sure this has been transferred over to my header and footer. Unfortunately for the header and footer, it seems like you have to do it, repeat the same process. So let's see if I select each of these layers. I can't select them, shift select them. Okay, so I'll do them one by one. So again, same thing here. 1200, and then add a bigger breakpoint at 1440. Boom, that's been done. And then same thing for the footer. Our breakpoints are ready, which is what I wanted. Fantastic. So let's make sure that our page all sits on the primary. Great. 1440, well, it's got 2 pixels extra. I guess that's what it requires for some reason, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. So our breakpoints are set up. Now we're going to set up the background colors. So we'll go ahead again and choose page in our layers panel and make sure our background is black throughout, like my main website. This section looks like it's gray, so we can just make it transparent. In fact, the header has this, if I remember correctly, I can't see it now. Let's just increase the opacity a bit. We can go ahead and delete that, and we can change the name into at build with Omar, which is just a text layer for my handle, which I have on my website. So also the colors will be the paper color, and I believe we have orange in for the build and Omar text. So we can select this, and not sure if this will work on Wix, but yeah. Fantastic. Okay, it worked as expected. So you can give multiple colors for a text layer, which is good. And at the bottom, we've got the footer, which I'll go back and tweak a bit later. But for now, we'll just make this text white so at least we can see it. Great, so here's my section. Now that we've done with our base setup, we can go ahead and start fleshing out the first section, which is this little sort of bento grid style block that we have over here. So let's jump in. Perfect, so now that we set up the foundations of our file, we can go ahead and flesh out our first section, which is this section over here. It's a grid with a few columns. So there's 1, 2, 3 columns, and the middle column is split in the middle. So let's go ahead and add that. So the cool thing about Wix is that your sections out of the box has this grid feature, which is really, really useful. So we can use this right away. So we'll go ahead and add 2 columns, and I'll select the right column. So notice how each of these blocks are called cells inside of Wix. And another really cool thing about Wix is that you have this breadcrumbs feature. So whenever you're selecting an element inside the canvas, you can go ahead and go to its parent layer through this breadcrumb approach. From cell, I can go to section, and then from section, I can go to the whole page, etc. And this is a more optimized workflow versus always having to go back to your layers panel to select exactly what you need, right? So really cool feature there. So we'll go ahead and select this cell, and we'll split it in the middle. And we'll take the middle one and split it horizontally. So that gives you the structure that we have here. And we'll start adding the colors that we need. So the base colors are sort of this lighter black or super dark gray, and we've got green, orange, and the image. So let's go ahead and add those bits there. So starting with the background, added this color earlier, and then this background for the cell will be green, and this cell is orange. And this cell has to have an image, which we can do by adding media. So we'll go ahead and click Add Media. I'll click Upload. I've got the image right in my files over here. Fantastic. So we've added the image, click Add to Page, and there's the background image. Very important. Notice how I'm editing on the primary breakpoint. Make sure you're always doing your main edits, especially in this part of the exercise or tutorial. Make sure you're editing on primary, because if you're editing in these smaller child breakpoints, it won't cascade upwards to the other screens. So the way the technology works is that everything cascades downwards to screen. So if I edit on the bigger screen, it'll cascade downwards, right? And adjust the properties across all the other breakpoints, but it doesn't happen the opposite way. So keep that in mind. Now that we've got the foundational structure ready for this section, we can go ahead and add the finer details. So we'll go over to my Figma file. You'll notice that we've got a 24 pixel border corner radius. There's gaps between each of these blocks, about 8 pixel, I can see. Let's have a look. So 8 pixel horizontal and vertical gap, as well as a 80 pixel padding left and right across the entire website, as well as between sections, as you can see here. So let's go ahead and add those bits. So the logo seems like it had some automatic default padding. So we'll go ahead and stick this to the edge. And now let's go ahead and add the actual padding. So I think the best way to do this would be to go to the page level and add 80 pixels on either side. Notice how the units is set to percentage. I'm switching it to pixels to get exactly what I need. And there you go. So our padding has been added successfully. Now let's go ahead and add the gap between the cells. So to do that, we go to the section, go to the edit panel, and scroll down. On the layout, you'll notice we have this property for gaps. So we'll add 8 horizontal and 8 vertical. Great. So almost there. We just have to now add the 24 pixel corner radius. The best way to do this is select a cell and then hold shift on your keyboard and select all the other cells. So multiple selections. Okay, so that didn't work. Let me try that again. So cell, 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 and cell. And notice how with this multiple elements selected, we have the common property for corners. So we can go ahead and add our 24 pixel across all the corners. Great, so that's been done. Only thing is this image hasn't been done successfully. So let's go ahead and click the image. And I think we just have to do it on the image level. So let's just added there. There we go. So that's worked. For some reason, I don't think it works on the cell level, which is fine. So I've done it on the image as well. So fantastic. Okay. So next up, we've got our basic structure there. We need to also add the 80 pixel padding below the section. So we'll go down and click this, switch this to pixels, and we'll add 80 pixels below. So the next section will have the sufficient gap. I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, I think this requires, if I'm not mistaken, I have a border thickness with the lighter gray on the dark block. So I'll pick the cell here, border, and click the color. And this gray I added earlier, and add the thickness to 1 pixel. Fantastic. So I've got my overall layout ready. And let's go check out how that looks on my other screens. So it's just kind of kept it the same across all my screens, which I'm fine with. We just need to make sure that the size and the width and everything is correct, as well as the responsive functionality and behavior, which is basically keeping this block on the right fixed and the left block stretchable. So that's the only thing that actually is responsive technically. But right now, as you can see, it kind of uniformly scales, which is not exactly how I intended it, right? So we'll have to go and add that now. So let's go over to my Figma file, and at the 1440 width, let's look at some of these properties. So this is the one that's responsive and it's dynamic in width. So I'm not going to go to that. I'll go to this one. So the collective is 620 width, and the individual blocks are, at least this column is 294 and this column is 318. Now from here, if I go to the Wix Studio Editor, notice how these columns, I believe, cannot be changed. They're auto responsive, set to stretch. So I can't actually give it a fixed width or height. Doesn't look like there's any properties to suggest otherwise. And I remember going through the Wix tutorials, I believe I have to change this into advanced CSS, but let me just confirm. So I'm here in cell section, and we have the layout structure, and notice how there's no properties to change the width at all here. It's all set to responsively stretch and behave automatically. Maybe there might be an advanced sizing property if I switch this on. Even here, the width is set to auto. So everything's set to auto, and I can't actually adjust any of these things, right? So I think the only way to make this work is by changing this to advanced CSS. So let's go ahead and do that first. So I'll go again to the parent section, and from the parent section, let's just duplicate it in case we mess with it, because if you change this to advanced CSS, you can't go back. So I'm going to keep a duplicate in case I need to return to it. I'll click switch. So it's telling me, prompting me that, once I turn it to an advanced CSS grid, it's a permanent action. So that's why we've duplicated it. And there you go. So this is the advanced CSS grid. What it does, it actually creates a more technical grid. As you can see the grid lines running through, and each section can occupy different blocks within that grid. So it's a typical kind of block grid that you see in web kind of responsive layouts. So we have this block over here occupying 2 cells, and this one occupying 1 cell, and so on and so forth. Now I believe this allows me to have more control. So let me pick this. This is set to stretch. Let me pick this column. This is set to scale proportionally. And then there's the second column, which is also set to scale proportionally. What if I change this to, you know what? Let me get the height right first. So the height is 453 height. So let me give that the height it needs. So I'll pick the entire section, and we'll have fixed height and 453 height. Okay, so that worked. That's exactly what I was hoping. And now this one's set to responsive. So these little cells need to be fixed width. So there we go. So we have, okay, this is, if I change this, this is going to change just, okay, so these little blocks have turned into containers, right? So they're little elements inside of this grid, and they're occupying a space within the grid. So the kind of structure and properties have changed compared to this section grid, which is very different, where it's just kind of cells and the content is embedded within the cells. So it's not like this here. These are actual containers and it's occupying this grid, right? So I need to somehow pick the grid. So let me go to the section and make sure this property is fixed. Oh, there we go. So here, notice in the layout property of this section of this advanced CSS grid, we have the columns, and here we have column number 2, FR, which is an automatic fraction system. I'm going to switch this to pixels, and I want it to be exactly the same width as this, which is 294. So 294, here we come. Great. Okay, so that works. So this is now 294 permanently, and this one needs to be 318. So let's go here, pick that, change the unit, 2 pixels, 318. Great. So now that's hyper accurate, exactly what I was hoping for. It looks exactly like this, in fact. Perfect. So now the next thing I want to do is just test the responsiveness. Yep, see? So this whole section is fixed exactly how I wanted it. Beautiful. Okay, so now let's see how it cascades down. So this is okay. However, this particular breakpoint I'm not too happy with. It's made this left block too small in width, and I'm sure the text that I'm going to add later is not going to really fit in this block here. So I'm not really happy with that. And then it starts to significantly break down over here, as well as on the mobile section, it's just completely broken. Now, there's a super cool, magical feature with Wix, which I'm going to try out right now, which is so let me just quickly delete this first, which is the auto responsive feature using AI. So I'll go ahead and click this container and section. And so now that I've got the sections selected, I can go ahead and hover over this icon over here, which is the responsive AI. And using AI, it would actually make all the sections responsive for each of my breakpoints. So let's go ahead and test it out. The cool thing about this is that once you've selected this option, you don't have to choose to go ahead. You can reverse and go back, right? So let's go and see what the AI generates anyway for my responsive layouts. So there we go. Generating responsive design, optimizing for mobile. Not bad, not bad. Okay, let's see how this works. Okay, so it undid my my kind of fixed width on these sections here, but that's okay. I can go ahead and do that later again. And then from here, this is what tablet looks like, and this is what mobile looks like. You know, it's not so bad. In fact, I think I can go ahead and use this. It changed my breakpoint somewhat, I think. Oh no, the breakpoints are still there, it looks like. And then tablet is like this. I'm not 100% satisfied with how tablet worked out, because I really want, for example, this section on the smaller desktop, I want this to collapse, right? So let's see if I can fix this first, and then maybe the AI can help me a bit later. So I'll go ahead and choose section and go to the layout and switch the layout to a vertical one. Now everything's vertical, which is fine. Let's see how this looks. Okay, so this has been cascaded downwards to all the other sizes below. My desktop size is still correct, but I want these two blocks to be on the left of this. So I think what I need is another column. So now I've got a new column in here. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, so everything's kind of shifted to the right because I have this new column. Let's go to the location grids and add it. Okay, so I think I have to hold shift and choose how many grid cells I want this particular block to occupy. I think just the 2 grid cells will be enough. There we go. So that's the top section done. Let's pick this green block and we'll move that to this cell, and this orange block can move to this cell, and my image can go from here to here. Okay, great. So that looks good. However, we have all these dead grids cells at the bottom, so we have to somehow fix that too. Let's go ahead and see what's going on. So we have, okay, so we have a bunch of rows. So let's go ahead and delete these rows. We don't need them. I'm hoping this would automatically fix the problem. So we got three rows, but I think like this row at the bottom is like really, yeah. So here's row 1 and then row 2, which doesn't make sense. I think it needs to be around pixel value 200 at least. Okay, where did the content go now? Everything just disappeared. Okay, that's a bit strange why that had to happen. I don't know why things are disappearing. Let's try and, okay, so that's the actual size of the cell. Some reason it kind of, all these bits have kind of broken up. So, well, try this maybe, just stretch these sections again to make sure they're fully responsive. And then what we got to do is go to the section and try that trick I did earlier. So which is to change this to about 200. There we go. So that looks more accurate. This can be 200 and this can be 200 too. Yeah, much better. So you can see the padding and everything, it all kind of checks out. If I go to the visual preview, looks good. So this is much better responsive layout. However, the mobile definitely needs work. Now let's see if we can use, okay, I can't use the responsive design AI on smaller sections. I have to go to a bigger one. So let's try it, because we don't, it's never permanent, which is cool. So I can go and check and see how it does a mobile responsive layout. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then it's fine. I'll do it manually. Oh, wait a minute. I think this time it's kind of, okay, so that's my largest breakpoint. That's the next one along, which is good. So it kind of collapsed it in the way that I did. And there we go. There's mobile. Yeah, this is fantastic. Mobile looks much better. I mean, definitely the padding could be adjusted somewhat, but it's collapsed in the right direction, right? So we could go ahead and apply this design. The only thing I got to do is on the higher breakpoint, I just got to add again the fixed sizes on the width. So just go to section, and I think, was it rows and columns? Yeah, so again, this needs to go back to pixels, and that needs to go to pixels. I think this was 318 if I remember correctly, and this one was 294. Right now it's 298, so close, but let's make it accurate. Great, so, and there is the tablet, smaller desktop, tablet, and mobile. Fantastic. Now, of course, for mobile, this padding is way too crazy. Let's switch this to percentage and make it around 7%. Oh, you know what? Let's change it to pixels and make it around 10 pixels is common for mobile, to be honest. I think that's a decent border radius. So this one, these images and these blocks have reduced in corner radius. I think we can go back to 24 on these. The 24 just look better. So we'll go ahead and add 24. 24. I just want this to go one below, and that one can go right. Okay, there we go. That kind of worked. Cool. So that looks good. Let's try the preview. Nice. All right, so now we got to add the contents inside my little blocks, right? So we'll go into editing mode, go to the largest breakpoint, and let's start adding these little elements. So we'll start with the text. Boom. And I'm gonna align to top, very top. change the color to the paper white, copy this, and paste it right over here. This needs to stretch all the way through and through to the end. Great. Yeah, so that fits to the whole section. I'll duplicate this layer, and just below that we'll add the next text layer, which is this bit here. And the size of this needs to be, I'll set it as sort of header 3, and we'll go and tweak the styles in a minute so that it all kind of matches up. And there's a nice to meet you bit here, which I don't feel needs to be a separate second layer. I'll just add it in the same text box. Yeah, that works. Now let's go to our text styles. So the main header, which is this one, oh, this is the, I guess, header 1, which is the largest one. So this one should be around 40. So H2 will be 40. Apply. So that's gone smaller. And then I think I've set this one as H3. So H3 will be 32. Fantastic. Okay, so there is the text box. Now let's go check what kind of padding I'm using here. So all in all, the padding is 48 across the around the entire block. So again, use the breadcrumbs, select the section. Actually, I want to select the container, sorry. And from the container, we'll go down and add changes to pixels and add 48. And choose the link option so that it goes across around it uniformly. Ooh. So that's what's happened actually, interestingly. It's added padding around the container, which is not what I wanted. I think, okay, so this is, I guess, padding, and then this is, so that's padding and this is margin. So we want it on margin, so my bad. So just make sure you see which part you're interacting with, and I was interacting with the outer one, which is not the right one. So again, 48 pixels, click the link. Exactly, that's exactly how I wanted it. So again, making sure we're editing on primary. That looks good, looks pretty accurate to my design, in fact, and we just need this little circle element over here, which is easy to do. So I'll add a container, and I'm going to scale this down all the way. I'm going to grab both of these together, and I'm going to stack it horizontally. And yeah, I'm going to take this thing, center it up, move it to the left, and we'll align to left this one. Okay, this stack is on a hug behavior, which I think is okay, although I'm not sure if this stack is exactly how it's supposed to be. So let me try and make sure everything is functional. And this little block square, let's see what kind of size it needs to be. So we have 64 by 64, 64 by 64. Okay, and the spacing between each section, between the text and that, is 24. So we have right now 0.5, so 24 pixel spacing. I feel like I'm running out of space, but should be okay. You know what? This text needs to be set to hug. There we go. And now this element is, yeah, also set, the stack is also set to hug. I'm going to take this block and I'm going to go to corners and increase it by like 100 to make it a circle. And I think I should be able to add an image inside. Nope. Okay, on the contextual menu, click Add Media. Go Upload Media, and from my computer, I've got my face. The corners didn't carry over, so I'll add it over here. And that did the trick, looks like. Yeah, so that sort of worked. I'm happy with that. I think we just need a bit more padding. Let's just see what kind of padding I'm using over here. So we have the image in the middle, and there's sort of, so the actual image is 40 pixels width. So you know what, we can just try and do it that way. So we'll make this 40 and that 40. Oop. And the container itself can be, what was it, 64? Fixed, 40, 40. Make this background transparent. Was it really 64? Let's check. Yeah, 64, 64. And the image inside is 40, 40. Yeah, anchored to the middle. Great, so we've done that block. Let's see how that carries over. Ooh, this definitely needs work. This doesn't look right. Let's adjust this. Let's make sure that these two stack. Okay, we'll go to the layers panel just to be sure. So we have section, and then in here, where is that? Okay, so stack and this title over here. We're gonna right click and stack them vertically. And let's see the distance in my Figma design. So over here, the vertical design is 24 pixels. Let's do the same. It's set to percentage, set it to pixels, and we'll do 24 pixels. Now let's see what it looks like over here. So it's much better, but still I think this thing needs a bit more height. And so we can do fixed, that's a fixed width, which is not what we want. Go to the container and then go to the section and choose this. And over here, we can adjust the height to around 400, maybe a bit less, 300, just about right. Let's make sure that, where's this aligned to? This whole container stack is aligned to the top, I'm hoping, and the left. Yeah, so anchored to the top left, 0 margins. And that's what we expect over here. Cool, so that's looking better. Let's just try the preview again. Beautiful. So pretty responsive, except from this point here where you can see that it's starting to bleed into this section, right? So we don't want that. Let's go to edit size and see if we can make the tablet size a bit automated, at least this section. So let's go and try to set the scale to auto. There we go. Now let's see what this looks like. Beautiful. Now the text is also set to auto, which is not what I wanted, to be honest. And I think this is the mobile size anyway, so that needs a bit of editing anyway. So let's go and see what's happened here. This is okay. Overall, this text shouldn't be scaling in that sense. I want it to be, these two text layers just needs a bit of work here. The scale is set to auto. It says scale proportionally. I think what I want is to wrap. I want this to wrap as well. Now let's see what this looks like. Okay, so this one was kind of confused, the stack. I need to center it. Okay, there we go. I think that kind of worked out. So we have that, that, and that. So this one could use a bit of help. Let's try stack it vertically. Yeah, that looks a bit more reasonable with the space on the tablet size at least. I don't think we have 80 pixel on this either side of the tablet. I think it's too much. Let's reduce it to about 40. And let's see what the mobile looks like. It's better, but again, same thing here. We gotta push this to the top. This container needs to go to the top, and the text layer needs to, at least for the mobile, needs to go to a wrap responsive layout. Sorry, a scale proportionally or wrap. Yeah, it should be a wrap. And basically this needs to fill the width, and then the stack needs to be 24, which is what we, not that one, but the total stack needs to be pixels 24, and there's a lot of space in between this, which came from the original, the actual original container. So I believe it's this one over here. Can't really see. Oh, there we go. That's the padding. It's so hard to see it when, because this bit is highlighted, you gotta select in, and then you'll notice the margins and the padding. Sorry. So this needs to be much less. I think like 20. Okay, that's not too bad actually. I'm quite happy with 20. Let's see what this looks like on the preview. Ooh, not too bad. Not too bad at all. And let's see how this scales. It's not bad. Look, the way it wraps and stuff like that, maybe a bit more space on the bottom. We can do that. So we'll choose this block over here. And add about 40 on the bottom. Boom, just to give that nice little space between below the text. Otherwise it just feels very claustrophobic. I think it might be wise to consider a text change, a text size change. But overall, this is looking better. You can see this bit needs a bit of work on the tablet. Let's go to the tablet. What's going on with this text box over here? This clearly needs to be left aligned. And it's not for some reason. Is it because of the stack? Is there a different alignment on the stack? How do we align items? Oh, there we go. So on the layout, just make sure we got to make the layout have the proper alignment. Great. Okay, so that's looking good. I think on the mobile sizes, you got the font size. I think we could reduce the font size. Or we'll just do it over here. We'll just change the size, 28. How about 24? And this one can go all the way down to 36 and 32. 28 even. There we go. That fits at least vertically. And we got to make the layout as well left align. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's looking better. Okay, so these menus, that doesn't seem to carry over on the tablet. Looks a bit different. So let me try and remove overrides. And nothing's happened. Let's just align it manually. It's fine. Remove overrides. Nothing's happened. Try align manually. Yeah, that worked at least. Great. Okay, so again, let's try preview. Yeah, so much better. Great. Okay, so let's go back to edit site. Just a few more text elements to add. So it looks like a 2 text stack. So what I can do is just take this, stick it in here, remove this one, and remove the upper text stack, and then just take this text, duplicate it, and we'll add total following. Total following in black, and below that my following has increased. Now it's around 50K plus. Haha. Just a little self promo there for a moment. Why not? Why not? And okay, I can't seem to now position this accordingly. There we go. That's where it should be. Fantastic. Center it up. Choose a stack. What spacing do we have in this stack? Oh, in Figma, you call it auto layout. Let's see what we have. We have 8. Okay, so let's change this to pixels. 8 and font size 56, which is the bigger one. So let's just choose this and make this H1. So I'm using the tags, and that's the problem. I shouldn't be changing it from the tag. I should be changing it from theme. And let's go to the fonts and make sure H1 is actually supposed to be 56. Click apply. Boom, there we go. And what's this font over here? So this one's 24. Okay, so from here we're going to go to heading 4 is too big. Let's go to heading 6 and we'll go and change it on styles. This one, actually number 5 can be 24 and number 6 can be 18. Number 5. Great, so there's my block for that. I'm going to now take this, copy it and paste it in here. And here we have slightly different startups in and growing is the text. It's a different layout as well. Startups in and growing. Startups in and growing, full capital. I mean full word. 4+. And let's stack this horizontally. Make that hug, sorry. And the spacing between this I think should be around the same as the other one, which is, in this case, it's 22. 22, oh, that little field just appeared there. I don't know how that appeared, just hasn't happened to me before, but that was useful. And we'll center this up. So we gotta hug this even a bit more, so break it up there. There we go. And we can center it up. Yeah, make sure the items are also nice and centered. The 4+ should be heading 1, which is what I've got it as. Fantastic. So we got that bit in. Let's see how this looks. Beautiful, although a bit of responsive work there is required, as you can see. Over here, it's not the cleanest layout. And here it just gets way too tiny. So let's go fix that. Edit site. First of all, I don't want this property yet. I'm not really a big fan of this whole scale property thing. So we see this on a lot of these texts, which is auto scale. Not sure why. Okay, so it's when it's this, basically, when it's set to, so just make sure it's always set to wrap if you don't want that auto scale property to be there. If it's scale proportionally, we're not gonna see that. And on the smaller screens, we gotta just make sure these layers are set to left align. Okay, so we also need some kind of padding here to make it all align properly. Over here, if I remember correctly, I'm using 48. So let's just see what I'm using over here. Am I using the same thing? It's 40 over here. So, and slightly different, to be honest, on various sides. Yeah, so 26, 26, about 40, 40 on either side. So yeah, let's just see if we can add that. Does that change anything? So we'll take this little stack, put it to the far left, and just to automate the margins, right? Pixels, 40. Boom. Same thing over here. pixels 40. Just make it fit nicely into this section. Okay, that grid just suddenly started changing for some reason. I don't know why that happened. That's a weird one. This whole grid changed, which doesn't seem right because should be 222. Should be auto, I guess, and this one too should be auto. There we go, that worked. So the stack of these texts are not really functional because look, it just starts to break, and also there's some issues here clearly. So we do have more responsive work on these texts. Let's go to edit site, and we'll start by changing this on the tablet mode to, to just be across the entire thing. So we'll take the stack and make sure it just fills all the way to the end. Second thing, this one too. There we go. And this one, the container looks like it doesn't have the same, well, it does have the same property at the bottom, but it doesn't look like it for some reason. Let's scale it out and scale it in, back in. Scale it out, scale it back in. Okay, it seems like it does have the correct property, but it doesn't. Let's make this fixed. Okay, so that looks better. Let's try and see what this looks like. Okay, still broken on the desktop now. Not sure what exactly happened here, but 22 pixels over there. Okay, what's the stack over here? 8. How did it become 30? That was a strange one. Okay, there we go. All right, great. So this is looking good. I think these blocks could be on the mobile as well. Well, the thing is the mobile gets quite small later on. So, I mean, this is where it gets really small. And then from here, it actually looks pretty decent. Like you wouldn't want to change that too much. But I do feel like we have an opportunity in mobile to hug the contents versus force it to have that much real estate. So let's just take these blocks on mobile. Section and there we go. So somehow when you stretch it, it just kind of auto size it as well. So I'm not sure how Wix's property works in that sense, but when I stretch the container to match the size, it kind of fixed itself. And I'm okay with that. Finally, so we got all the contents inside and it's fully responsive. We do have this little block over here as well, which is going to be a bit tricky. So let's go ahead and do it. Go to edit site. just quickly add a container, and I'm going to add this container inside my image block here. Turn it nice and small. There we go. So if look at this one has, what's going on here exactly? So it's got a 12 pixel padding across the entire thing. So if I take this on the layers, I can go, that's a container. So here I can go and add, turn this into pixels and then add 12. Oh, that's gone and added like 12 inside. Okay, let's just grab the size over here. So the size of this thing, this little piece is 294. 294, I got it right here. I actually estimated it, that's pretty wild. And then the height is 108. And so the pixel distance at the bottom is 12 from my Figma design. Great. So let's see if we can just set that up across the board. There we go. So that's worked. Okay. And then now let's go check the border radius on this thing. It's 24 like the other pieces. So we'll go to this and change this corners to 24. And also it's got the paper color, so which I already said earlier, so this color. And then finally, it's got icons inside for links. Now this is going to be tricky. I wonder if Wix has some kind of custom social bits already. So here's some codes, embed custom element. Okay, so there's some social icons over here, which I could potentially use. So let's just drop that in there. Nice. Okay, that kind of worked. That works quite well, actually. It looks quite similar to what I already have. I'm going to stick to this. Now the social bar, what do I have? I have Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. So I got LinkedIn, which is extra. I don't need that. Let's just set social links. So we'll delete LinkedIn, and we can set up these links later, but you can see how easy it is to set up, right? It's quite simple and straightforward. We'll set this over here, and inside there, centered up nicely. There's more space and stuff. I don't see if there's any control of this. Okay, there's icon size, which is, okay, the pixel. We can control this pretty much. So let's see. So this should be 44 in size, and then the spacing between it should be 12 pixel spacing, but 18 right now. Set it to 12, and yeah, that should do it. Although it still looks quite big for some reason. It doesn't seem like 44 pixels looks like the right size. Oh, Facebook. I don't need Facebook. Yeah, so it is 44. I don't have Facebook actually, or I'm not promoting it, at least on my website. So there we go. So there's Twitter, or X as they call it now. Great, I'm happy with that. So we got our logos there, default from Wix itself. Let's see how this looks on the other windows. Okay, so layout starting to break over here, and over here, and over here. So let's go fix this. Okay, so let's see what's going on. Seems like this one, even though it doesn't seem like it's inside of the container, is it? Let me just go check this out. So we have this container over here. So this needs to stretch in. Okay, so it does look like it's in the right place, but for whatever reason, it's just not stretching across the whole thing. I can't, oh, there we go. So we have to just kind of layer it on top manually, and then it kind of fixes itself. And then from here, we got to do our thing on the margins. So let's go switch this to pixels 12. Sorry, let's make it 12. There we go. So that kind of fixed itself. Okay, let's stretch it out first. stretch it out to fit, and then we'll do the 12 pixel thing later. So here, 12. Okay, I don't know why it broke on that side. So some of these properties are a little bit tricky to hack on Wix, it seems. So just be cautious of that. I think what I'm going to do is just create a unique size for this. Kind of do it by eye. There we go. I think that'll work. So we have tablet, boom, and then we have, there we go. So that's working on mobile. And this one still needs work over here. So stick that up. And I think personally, this one needs to be much taller as well. So let's go back to the section and make this basically a lot taller. So if I do auto fraction, that's not working. Let's just do pixel lit ratio, and we'll do around 800 on this one. Too big. 400. Let's think. There we go. That's perfect. I'm happy with that. Now the icons are problematic right now, right? They look like they've scaled in a weird way. Not sure why this did it. I think, okay, scale proportionally, that's why. So let's go to the original one and set this to fixed. See what that does. Boom, fixed over here, fixed over there, and fixed in mobile too. So that did work. So let's try. Yeah, so it does it. It's even in the tightest screen sizes, it's still functional, and that's good news. All the way to the wider screens, it looks pretty functional to me. Woohoo! So super responsive grid. That took a while, but we got there in the end. I'm gonna publish this build with Omar just to start seeing it on the browser now. It's always a different experience seeing it on the browser, no doubt. So we'll go ahead and check this out. Set this up. Wow. Super, responsive like butter. Just a few issues like these corner radiuses on different responsive sizes might need a bit of adjusting. Like, notice how this corner radius kind of adjusts itself in a strange way. So I'll just take a look at that later. But we got our top grid fully fleshed out the way I wanted. So I'm really happy about that. We can now go ahead and knock out the next section. So the next section is my stuff. It's like a little store, very simple grid. The way we're going to do this is we need two elements from Wix that can help us achieve this. The repeaters, which allows us to create this card once and then repeat the same type of card over and over again with custom content. And the second thing is to populate the content automatically. We can use the CMS, right? So Wix has a great CMS that's deeply customizable that you can connect to these cards and automate as many cards as you want based on what's in the CMS. So let's go ahead and create these cards now. So from the Wix Studio, I'm going to go ahead and select my section, add a new section, select that section and remove the transparency all the way, drop it all the way to 0. And from here, all we got to do is let's take this text element, copy it inside the section and set it up there. Let's unstack. We don't need this image. We just need the text. Title it My Stuff. And the font should be H1 with the paper color. Fantastic. Okay, so next up we need repeaters, right? So the repeaters module, like I said, allows you to create dynamic content and you kind of repeat this across a flex layout that automatically kind of fills the width of your section. So I'll go ahead and drop it in there. Well, it doesn't fill necessarily, but within this, you can see the cards are automatically flexing and filling proportionally. So that's really cool. And that then allows you to create uniform cards in that sense. So we're going to set it edge to edge. We're going to have to place this in a container so we have more control. And we'll place the container all the way to the bottom and make this height. So what we want to do is perhaps, yes, the height. Set the height properly. Great. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to do is take the container and my stuff and place that in a stack, vertical stack. let's say the distance. So I think the distance should be around 20 pixels. Perfect. We'll add those little details later. There's a few other texts and stuff like that, but it's not a priority at the moment. We can always add that later. Great, so that's there. And then the background. There we go. So let's just go to the small screen so we get a, that doesn't work. Relative width would be better. Stretch. Okay, so we set that to relative width. That kind of allows better responsivity. All right, so we've got our repeater and we've added the colors. Now let's go ahead and add an image. I want to just show you how the repeater actually works. So we'll go to quick add and drop an image inside one of these cards, and notice how all of the other duplicated cards follow the exact same pattern as the repeater that I'm editing. So even if I duplicate a new card, it'll follow exactly the same design. If I added the second one as well, all the rest will follow. So all the repeaters are essentially the same. All right, so what I want to do is I want to make sure I design it exactly like this card. The card's made out of a few components. We've got an image and there's a precise grid going on below it. So let's go and try and add that. I think the best way to do that would be using our layout tools. We'll go to CSS Grid and simply add one of these column flex boxes, or sorry, not grid flex boxes, but advanced CSS box. And this will give us more flexibility in terms of how many columns or rows we need. So I believe we just need, in fact, we can set it to stretch. There we go. So let's go over here and let's try and calculate how many rows we would need for this to function. So we need, there's 1 row for the image, 2, 3, 4 if you count the line, 5 for the text, 6, 7, 8 rows there, 9 rows. Let's just try 9. I'm going to start, you know what, let's add them one by one. So I'll start by adding the image inside this section over here. And I want this bit to take part. So breadcrumbs, container. I want the image to occupy only the top cell. Great. Okay, so that's working. And then we're just sort of just mapping it out first. Okay, we're not making it precise. The goal is not to try to make it perfect this stage. In fact, what I'll do is I'll pull a title and drop that in here. So we have a, what size is this? 24 pixel title. We'll close this because I keep getting confused. 24 pixel title. Great, so we got that. Let's drop it to the edge and stretch it all the way to the other end. In fact, I'll give it a proper text. So let's call this product title goes right here. Great. Of course, the colors are not right. Let me just pull this whole container and make it, actually, you know what? Keep it as 100%, but it has to be this color. Yeah, the dark gray. And this needs to be lighter gray. Fantastic. Okay, great. So there's that one. I think we need a few more columns here. And then we have this text with the, so yeah, we have this text with the tag over here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to take this bit over here and split it into 2. But take this image and make sure it occupies 2 cells. And this text as well can occupy 2 cells over here. There we go. So that one. I want this to increase. Pixels. Let's try and estimate, you know, what's the distance between this bit over here. About 266 is the size. So let's try and take that and increase it by at least 280. Great, so that's that. Next up, we have featured product. So how do we get that in? So we're going to duplicate this for sure. Put that at the top. I think we definitely need another row over here. And this one can go right there. This row here can be much, much smaller, but let's first add the tag. So we'll just pick this text over here. Featured product, it's 12 pixels. And it goes super small. So paragraph 2. And got to put this into a container. And the container has got to have some padding, right? So if I'm not mistaken, it should be 8 pixels. That's how I designed it. Let's go and check. So 4, 4, 12, 12. Sorry, not 8, but 4. And over here, it'll be 12 on either side. Great. Okay, so that's that bit over there. And let's make sure we have the right gray going through the tag design. We've got scale proportionally. $12. Okay, so that looks like I added it in the padding section, which is not what I wanted actually. I want to make sure it's in the, the margin section. I want to do it on the padding section. There we go. So oftentimes, some common mistake I do, I'm sure everyone else does it, is putting margins where padding is supposed to be and vice versa. There we go. So that's better. And this can be centered. This can be pulled together. And we want to make this corner radius super round. So we can make it like 24 and wrap it. There we go. And we can center the text. Okay, let's actually grab the height of this whole thing. So it's 32 height. Let's make sure this is also 32. Great, and we can align it to the top. Okay. Great, okay, so we got that font size. Great, okay, so I'm happy with that. Now, next up, got the title. Let's see, this is the grid again. Just to remind myself how we got this grid going on. Okay, so this row over here needs to be pixel scale. Okay, so that's fine, but the column, sorry, my bad, which is this one, needs to be pixel scale. Okay, so that's the full height. I think it needs to be, can I make the, oh, there we go, 32. Yeah, so that's 32, it fits the tag exactly how I wanted. And this can go to the top too. And this, let's make this 61 in height, so it fits exactly that text block. Great, okay. I want to add another tag over here. Duplicate that. It's pretty much the same design for the pricing, which goes over here. The only difference is it's see-through and we have a border, one width, I think the font's a bit bigger as well, 16 font, so a bit bigger, and bold as well. center the text. All right, okay, I think that overall works. Of course, you got to really hack through it to get it right. Let's add the line next. Perfecto. It's going to be 1 pixel. And this needs to be the lighter gray, which is that one, yeah. I think even this needs to be a bit lighter. Okay, so we've got text. Next up, we have body text underneath this section. So I'm going to copy that text and put it right in here. Copy this in. Slightly bigger. Perfect. So we got our text over there, and in fact, we can make it stretch all the way to the entire width of the card. And now we have this table. This is going to be tricky because I can't imagine doing it without another layout section. Something like, I wonder if you can add more repeaters. Let's go and give that a go. So let's try to add another repeater inside this bit here. No, you can't have a repeater inside a repeater, it looks like. That's fair. So let's go ahead and add a CSS grid columns. So we've got a CSS grid inside a CSS grid this time. Let's see if this works. So this one's 40 pixels. Let's make that 40 pixels too. Two columns here that we need. See what's the size of the height of one cell. So it's 41 pixels one cell. So if I do 41, 41, and 41, it should be fine. Yeah, actually that worked pretty well. So I'm stretching it in. And last but not least, we also need a button. Great, so we've made a lot of these blocks fit pretty tightly into these sections. Technically, that's what we need. I mean, we just need to do one thing, make this off, and then how about we use a line then? Let's go and try to pick that line. Just put it right in position. Perfect. And then this whole container becomes gets the same corner radius as that block there. So 12 corner radius. Great. Okay, so starting to work. And I want this button to be green. Text can be, again, button size around the corners is 16. Unfortunately, Wix Studio doesn't have inner shadow, but we could of course hack it with CSS if you know a bit of code, but I'm going to skip the inner shadow. Just going to add the 16 corner radius. Now let's go ahead and get the icon. So we've got shapes inside Wix off the bat. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find a decent tick in here. So let's just make sure it fits in here. And we click change basic shape. Let's type check. Yeah, this one looks good. Even that one. Go with this smaller one. Nice and thin, just like our design. And let's just check what the size of this icon is. So 16 width. And we'll make it stretch top to bottom so it anchors properly. Stack horizontally, and we'll add that. Duplicate, duplicate again. Fantastic. Okay, so that's kind of like the basics of what's supposed to be there in my card. Now, of course, we need to fix this up by adding the appropriate padding and all the finer details. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, great. So we've got the main components inside my card. Now I just want to try and work out the finer details, like the padding, the margins, etc. So I'm going to take this repeater and we'll start by adding the padding. So if you look at this, there is a 12 pixel going around across all of this, except at the bottom, there's a 16 pixel. So we can easily do that. I'm going to take the container, so not the stack, but inside the repeater, a single item. And from here, we'll go into padding, switch this over to pixels, and we'll turn this into 12 and we'll link it up in all corners, but we'll also add, I believe 16 at the bottom. Perfect. Now, there you go. Off the bat, we've got our padding. Let's go ahead and see what kind of round and corner we're working with. So 24 round and corner, just like the sections above that we did earlier. 24, great. And the image is 16. Fantastic. So 16. Oop, that's 24. Great. So it's coming together. This needs a border. So let's go ahead and add the border. I thought I added it earlier. Border, 1 pixel. Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. That's the border I was looking for. Great. So that's looking good. Now, wondering if we can actually put this all together and if these things offer like a gap. Okay, it looks like there is a gap. So let's go and check what kind of gaps I'm using between each section. So some sections are connected, but generally speaking, the gaps are around 20 to 24. So let's just choose the 24 gap that I've been seeing everywhere. So we'll go ahead and do 24. Fantastic. This one doesn't look like it's in the right cell. There we go. All we got to do is take this, that, and stack it vertically. Check out the line and these two elements. The distance between both of them is 24. Turn this in pixels, 24 spacing, 93 height. So I think we're going over the top with this gap here. So let's do now let's go and check what the image height is. So the image height's around 254. So this has gone flat. So let's make sure we get this right. Take that and turn that to pixels. 294. 54, sorry, 254. Fantastic. And that's nicely scaled up. We could also perhaps put this into a single container. I think, you know what, this is fine. And let's line this to the top. That's better. Make sure this is filling the entire container as well. Like this text as well. Fantastic. So there's the price. I'll make this a bit smaller so there's a bit of a gap, just in case. Okay, so these cells need a bit more padding, because if you look over here, the way my design works is that this is a 12 pixel padding, but from here there's an extra padding within the lower content of another extra 12. So let's see if we can do this. We'll go add another 12 over here and see what happens. Okay, it does it to the whole thing, which is what I was trying to avoid. Okay, let's see what happens when I move this tag a bit further. Okay, so it's the margin that I'm looking at. That's what I need, yeah. So the margins will work. So let's go ahead and add margins on all these things. 12 margins on either side here as well. Switch to pixels, 12 pixels, 12. Great. Text is kind of going a bit bananas over here. I mean, specifically the tick. Delete these stacks because I'm going to have to edit all of them. And I'd rather just do this once and for all and then figure that out, the rest out. Now let's just see what kind of padding we're expecting inside here. So it looks like there's about 16 on either end and about 8 on top and bottom. So got the stack. So we'll just turn this into pixels. 16, 16, 8, 8. So 48 height on all of these as well. Gotta observe that. Fantastic. So there's a table. Try 12 pixel height because it's getting a bit too much. Alrighty, so that's done. Let's see how tall my buttons are. It's 56. This is 53. So let's make this 56. And the size of the text, 16. So let's make sure the size of the text is 16 and bold. Okay, so I think that's our card complete. These other items kind of broke in the process. So I'm going to delete these second items. Oopsie. So here's my item. Now I want to do something before I start duplicating items. I want to see how does this all look like on other screen sizes. It looks like there's some overall problems, especially with the column layout. So let's try and fix that on the repeater level. There we go. So this needs to be sorted out a little bit. So about 240, even less, 200, 220. Yeah, that's better. Let's try and add a padding across. So we've done 12 here, but also the inner padding. Let's try and do this. This will save us trouble. All right, so I'm done with the entire card design, as you can see, at least on the desktop. Let's just see how this looks like on the responsive side. Okay, starting to break on the responsive side, definitely on tablet, it's no good, and mobile, it just completely gets obliterated. Okay, so one of the reasons is it looks like text keeps seeming to be set to scale proportionally, but it should be ideally set to wrap. So let's make sure all the text is set to wrap. Okay, overall everything's okay, but it still seems like some of these items keep breaking. I think what we're going to do is set the minimum width of this item to... You can't set minimum width, unfortunately, because of the dynamic nature of these boxes. Okay, so inside this, I'm going to add another column because I just feel like these ticks need to be inside a separate column. So what I'm going to do is unstack all of these. Unstack, unstack, unstack. And all these bad boys can essentially occupy 2 columns. Great, so that looks good. And these tick boxes essentially can be over here. We can make this a lot smaller. Beautiful. Okay, so that's been done. Just need to reduce the height of these repeaters, a bit too tall. Fantastic. Okay. So that's done on the desktop. Let's see what it looks like on beautiful. On tablet looks great. Starting to break on tablet, but that's okay. What we could do is reduce the amount of items. So go to the repeater and reduce it to 2. That fits now, and it'll go to mobile and definitely reduce it to 1, and that fits beautifully. Great. Okay, so finally things are starting to fit in. This section needs to have, I think it's 80 pixels below. Great, and this bad boy needs to be a bit smaller. 32 works. All right, let's have a look at how this look all comes together now. Beautiful. So it looks like the card is functional. Around here, this pricing tag kind of breaks a bit, but I think I can fix that. So let's go back to the edit and go to, what we got to do is just try our best to make at least this one a fixed property versus this one. So let's try and do that. So I'm going to go over here and turn this into pixels. And this one can be automatic. Great, so let's see what that looks like. Yep, it's functional. So just the smallest one could get quite affected. The 320 size could get affected quite badly, as you can see. I don't know if there's any way around that, to be honest. Unless, let's go and check what's going on the mobile side. Yeah, so we got to do this again, which is pixel value, and this one can be percentage. Same here, pixels, $100, and let's make this fractions. Fractions. There we go. Yeah, looks fine. It just, the text of course breaks up here, and also the height of this kind of card just grows, which doesn't look good. Let's try and keep the maximum width a certain size. I don't know if we can do that. Let's just try. Nope. Okay, so this is tricky. I wonder how we can get around that. It just seems like, I think the container changes height. We've got a fixed height over here, so why is it changing height? There we go. So I just made the fixed height and that kind of worked. Okay, so after tons of messing about, I finally finished this card. It took a while, but the logic is quite simple. It just really requires you to understand how the responsive layout works on Wix, right? And so, I mean, once you get it there, it starts to come together. I think, however, it's wise that the font gets smaller in these sizes, which I'll do. But overall, the card is functional. So that's good news, of course. Now, let's just walk through the card again. So we added a repeater, and then within the item, we added what we call a container with an advanced CSS grid. And that's the grid with 12 pixel gaps in between. And then we started adding various grid rows and columns, tweak the sizes accordingly with gaps. And this is how the layout came in. And we also added a table, which is also another advanced CSS grid with lines and icons and things like that, which, you know, resulted in what you see over here. And so, you know, if I finesse this more, I can get it even more accurate to my design, but overall I'm pretty happy with this. Now the cool thing is, you know, once we've done one card, it's just a case of taking one item and duplicating it as many times as you like. So if we do like 4, for example, that would be 4 items, as you can see here, and then you can test the responsive layout. So it works pretty decently, as you can see. Now, like I said, I think on some of these sizes, we need to worry about the fonts. I think specifically on the smaller desktop. So I would go as far as thinking the smaller desktop could have maybe 2 cards instead of 3. So that looks a bit cleaner. And over here, we've got to definitely reduce the font size on these cards. So let me just pick this font. And we'll go 9 pixels. That's a bit too small. Let's just do it manually over here. I think that'll be easier. And this one can be 16. Perfecto. Okay, so that looks good. Let's see what this looks like responsive wise. Yeah, better. It doesn't overlap or break anything as it was doing before. Fantastic. Okay, so again, like the smallest one here, I think might as well just fill this whole cell. There we go. So that's not breaking anymore. Great. Finally, we're able to get that done. Now that we have this grid up and running, I'm going to take a pause and on sort of designing the rest of these areas. I mean, you can tell, you know, with the techniques I've been utilizing, you can kind of keep moving forwards and adding all the rest of these sections using blocks, grids, and that kind of thing. All right, so this part's going to be simple. Now, to automate content, like you see in these cards over here within my personal website, the way you do that is you connect it to a CMS so that the content is scalable and you can launch, you know, new products or new, you know, articles or whatever these cards are supposed to represent for you. In my case, they're a combination of products and content. So the way you do that is firstly, you need to add a CMS. So go to the CMS and the add button and we'll click add to site. So this will kind of create a default CMS. You have to, I believe, pick a blog. Even if you're not going to use it, that's okay. So let's go and add something like that. Great. So I've got my CMS ready. Let's go and see what kind of, what are the fields I need to attach my content. So I definitely need a title. I need a description, long description, and then there's 3 pieces of text. So let's call it feature. Let's add this one and we'll call it feature 1. Okay, that's page link. Okay, let's go to manage fields and we'll delete these items. Okay, you can't delete them. Okay, apparently these are primary fields that you can't delete. I'm just going to check them off for now. Call this feature 1 and feature 2. So 3 features, 1, 2, 3, button text, and don't know if we can edit that, but we have the title and the tag and the price. So title, let's add tag. Let's add this into tag, change this text to tag text, description, and then we have price. Great, so that's my content. All right, so now we're going to connect the repeater cards to the CMS content so that we can dynamically update it based on the CMS. So the way you do this is pick each piece of content at a time. So we'll start with this image, for example. We'll head to the top right corner and we click CMS connections icon over here. Click add dataset. So we can choose this new collection that we created earlier, and this will open it up. Okay, I've lost the image. Yeah, there we are. So choose datasets, item data set, which is the one we just created, and image source connects to image. And there you go. So now it's changing based on the CMS data. Same thing with the text. We'll go here, choose tag text. Okay, that's too big. That's the default text that came with the CMS. I'll go over here and edit my CMS collections. And let's just choose this text over here. Let's just make it featured product as it was. And we'll just add that to all of them. Undo. There. There. Perfect. Now this is the long description. We don't want that to be that long either. So we'll take this text again. And in fact, what I'll do is take all of it and paste it there. Pricing. I'll make one free just to show you how it should change dynamically. And we'll take, as an example, is copy this feature over here of this product. Paste, paste, and paste. Okay, so last but not least, let's add this title over here. Okay, so that's done on the tag. Let's go connect the rest of these items, starting with the title. Connect that to title. And then this price can be connected to price text. Here's the little description. Turn that to long description. And then feature 1, feature 2, and feature 3. And it would be good if we can connect this to the CMS, but you can't for buttons at the moment. And I'm sure, of course, Wix will consider that in the future. But if you really want that to work, then you could probably create a separate element like I did with the tag. Now let's go ahead and see how this looks. So the data is dynamic. One of the products was free. Yeah, this one over here, as you can see, it's been successfully edited. And yeah, this is really functional actually. And it's got this beautiful hover state on the button, which you can edit on the edit panel. But there you go. As you can see, we've got a very functional responsive layout. Now that's where I'm going to end it. I mean, I could go further and add these different sections, but it's just, again, repeating the process as I showed you, adding grids, adding a section, and then adding containers and then grid, and then probably creating it into a stack. This is not going to be too hard. I think one thing that's worth showing you before we finish off this training is adding animations. Now, of course, there's a whole tutorial over here on using the animation tool or interactions tool, but let me add one over here. So I'll pick this text, we'll go to interactions, and on entrance, I want it to float. So that's really beautiful. As you can see, we can adjust the animation and we can reduce the duration and preview. I feel like the distance might be a lot. So what we could do is take this, and you know what? We can add the same hover animation over here so that it's consistent. And what we will do is give this a little bit of a delay. Okay, let's see if we can crop this bit here. So overflow is set to hidden. Now let's see what it looks like. Yeah, it's being cropped by this. After I've made the overflow cropped, it looks better. Now let's do the same thing for this. So entrance, float, entrance, float, and let's do a 3-second delay or 0.3. And this one can do an entrance slide, fade glide. That's kind of cool. Let's increase the distance. Ooh, that's too far. Again, we gotta make sure this is cropping or hiding the overflow. Great, and same thing over here. We'll do glide, adjust animation, turn it all the way here, and same thing, bit less. And we're going to do a 0.3 delay. And this one, do the same thing, float. And make sure, again, the container is hiding. Overflow is hidden. Perfect. Okay, so let's see how this looks. Cool. Now I feel like it could be a bit better. Like I just feel perhaps it's a bit slow. Let's try that again. So it's not too bad, but you can see where this can go. Of course, we can tweak the speed, tweak the delay so that it's all a bit more snappy and smoother. But overall, it's not a bad job for something super quick, right? So you can see how powerful the interactions tool is. It's also really user-friendly, in my opinion. You don't have to get bogged down in the intricacies of animation. There's a nice visual understanding of how these interactions are going to look like when you use them. And then really it's just tweaking these values, right? So super simple. And just like that, I've come super far within a couple of hours on my personal site. I'm really happy with it. I can launch this very soon. Just have to add the different sections, of course, complete with the CMS for my product and content section. Of course, I just need to go hack the different sections like the testimonial and the footer, but that won't take too long considering some of the complex layouts we've already created, right? All right, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Really, that's the process for Wix Studio, going from Figma to a Wix Studio website design. Using the properties is pretty seamless. Wix Studio is pretty user-friendly, so it's not really as complicated. There might be some limitations to other web builder tools in terms of the editing process, but I'm really sure that Wix are going to keep adding more features to this so it becomes richer and richer. I think the biggest takeaway is how user-friendly it is and how easy it is to navigate despite those small limitations here and there. Out of the box, there's so many cool features like the grid systems, the presets, the pre-made components, etc. There's so much that you can utilize to create a really advanced website. Now, if you did take part in this exercise, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to reply to it. If you're stuck or you need some feedback, do drop your link below and I'll have a look and I'll try my best to reply as soon as I can. That's it for now. I'll see you in a future video and make sure you never stop building.